presidential campaigns are always very expensive and there's always big money involved. And now there are concerns that money is dominating the U.S. democracy. So people are protesting, demanding the powers to be returned to their hands. And however, it seems very difficult to cut off the ties between money and politics. How complex are their relations?
Well, let's talk about presidential elections. We've gotten to the point where only three kinds of people can run. If you're a billionaire and you can fund your own campaign, that's the easiest way to run, like Donald Trump. The second way is if you have a wide basis of support in the business community, so you have a large number of people giving you large contributions, or with your super PACs, your allied political action committee, some of those 50 billionaires who have given such a huge amount of money this year. The third way is the way Barack Obama and Bernie Sanders have done it, which is a lot of small contributions. It's the hardest way. And really in recent American history, they're the only two candidates who've been able to get small contributions to be competitive with the others.
Right, and Ms. Schwartz, what do you think is happening here?
Well, I think it's a system that both sides of the aisle have talked about changing in the future. It's been very difficult to make inroads. And hopefully after this campaign, which is the most expensive in the history of the United States presidential elections, would make an impact for whoever is the next president and the Congress of the United States to take a look at campaign finance laws and do some further revision. In the meantime, it costs a lot to run a campaign. Now, I think caps are good. The super PACs kind of, go off on their own way and they can't be identified directly with the candidate's campaign. The candidate's campaign can raise $2,700. Now, Hillary Clinton had a string of fundraisers this last weekend hosted by George Clooney and his wife Amal. They raised an incredible amount of money. Her motorcade was showered with dollar bills along the path by Bernie Sanders supporters, and it's getting a lot of notice, and that is a good thing. But I think it's also very important to sort of identify over on the Democratic side as well as the Republican side, you've got the Republican National Committee and the Democratic National Committee. Well, the independent campaigns can raise $2,700 a donor. The Democratic National Committee can raise $33,400 from a single donor to go to things like down ballot races in the Senate, gubernatorial races, and so
that's
forth.
Certainly
so even when that big bucket is being
Ms. Schwartz,
raised,
let me just jump in here
yes,
and ask
but
you
when
this.
that bucket's raised, it's not all going to the individual candidate.
Well, Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders, they both have accused Hillary Clinton of taking a lot of money from donors from the wealthy Wall Street companies. And do you think that by making these claims, are they being serious about reforms, or are they just trying to take advantage of the public anger to buy votes, Mr. Donhan?
Well, I think in Hillary Clinton's case, she has endorsed campaign reform, but she's living in the system, and she's mastered the system in 2 elections. I mean, I covered the Bill Clinton White House, and he was a Democrat. He was the first Democratic president who made serious inroads in the business community, in the emerging technology community, with Wall Street, and with a new generation of business executives. She has capitalized on that. She really has built on what he had, and she's even stronger. The big change that's taken place is in the political world, the feelings of voters. There was an exit poll in New York. Both party voters, Democrats and Republicans, said that Wall Street does more harm to the economy than good. And this is in the home state of Wall Street. So I think the big change is that there are a lot of angry voters, angry at especially the financial system.
And why do you think people are so angry about the big money that's involved in politics, Ms. Schwartz?
Because Main Street can't identify with Wall Street, especially when it comes to influencing campaigns through money, which has been a rigorous debate and a good debate to have. But I think it's also very good on both sides of the aisle when people have been accused of taking money from Wall Street, or their super PACs taking money from Wall Street. Hillary Clinton just last week in a debate said to Bernie Sanders, I'm really tired of you always talking about this, because you show me one thing in my record as a New York State Senator or as Secretary, of State, where I ever gave a return on that money? And I think that that's the right question for anybody being attacked to ask, because you won't find that in all cases. And so I think it's important to fix the system going ahead. But for now in the race, if you're under that attack, hey, money's necessary. Like Rick said, you're in the system now. You've got to use it to your full advantage to become president and truly enact the solutions to the problems that are facing us. And that goes for either side of the aisle.
And it seems that things have changed a lot since the 1990s and early 2000s, when it was not as problematic to reach out to the pockets of Wall Street. But the financial crisis seemed a turning point. It seems that associating or being close to companies that brought down the economy was problematic. Is that why we're seeing this change in mentality?
Well, I think there are two things. One is political, one is legal. You've identified the political one, which is the change in Americans' feelings about big companies, about Wall Street, financial companies. The second is legal. In 2010, the U.S. Supreme Court decision in Citizens United said that basically corporations have the same free speech rights as people, which means to give unlimited amounts of money for political causes as long as they are not directly advocating the election of a candidate. And what that's created is an industry of what's called dark money or black money, that we don't know who is giving it. Their names of the groups always are Americans for Good Government, Americans for Democracy, things like that that sound good. We don't know who's funding it. We may never find out. Some of them we find out, but it's after the election. So that has created a lot of suspicion in a lot of people's minds. So it's a combination of that legal decision, which really changed the way campaigns are funded and helped the Republicans take over Congress in 2010 and keep it in 2014.
You talked about the political and the legal perspectives. What are your insights on this, Ms. Schwartz? What about the political perspective of this change?
Well, I think number one, and as the Democratic candidates have all stated, they want to overturn Citizens United as fast and as quickly as they can. And that's why they would like to get those down ballot races, because it's not just the president. Otherwise, Obama would have done this earlier. You have to make sure you have the party and the will in Congress to help. And so that's why I think you'll see the Democrats, as they continue the conversation about overturning Citizens United and putting in real campaign finance reform. It's not just about voting for that nominee of the party. It's voting for those up for the senatorial positions and the congressional positions. It's going to take a village to repeal such a landmark Supreme Court decision.
Now let's take a look at what politicians have been saying about this trend. Even politicians have questioned whether the influence of money has harmed the essence of U.S. democracy. Former U.S. President Jimmy Carter called the campaign process for getting a presidential nomination an oligarchy with unlimited political bribery, saying it made possible a subversion of our political system as a payoff to major contributors. So, Mr. Dunham, do you agree with what President Carter said? To what extent will contributors benefit?
Well, I think Jimmy Carter has good points. I think Bernie Sanders has good points. I think Donald Trump has good points about money influencing things. You have to, again, divide this one up between the money that's given to elect you and money that is given to influence in Washington. I think money that's given to candidates doesn't always win. Hillary Clinton got more money from big companies against Barack Obama, but lost 8 years ago. But it has a serious impact on legislation, on getting things passed or on killing legislation. Just look at what happens with gun legislation in the United States, or really more realistically, what doesn't happen. I mean, a massive majority of Americans are in favor of certain limits and restrictions on gun ownership, but nothing will pass. And you follow it on any number of subjects. Right now, the financial industry is trying to either repeal or change some of the reforms that were enacted after the financial crisis. Again, this election could matter a lot in whether that happens or not. They're putting a lot of money into elections to try to do that. So I think that's what you need to watch. money gives you an entree. It opens the door. It means that the elected official will listen to you. Whereas if you're an average person or even the group outside the Capitol, you don't have entree. You're not going to have a senator open the door and invite you in.
And that's right. If we cannot completely cut off the ties between money and politics, Ms. Schwartz, do you think at least we can try to, reduce the influence of money?
Absolutely. I think that is something that will have to be on the agenda no matter who wins in November, because not only is the world taking note of this system in America through the media coverage, which is well-deserved light shed on it, but the people in America just don't want to stand for this anymore. And it's not even divided up in the geographic or demographic divides in our country. Everybody's sick of it. But what's interesting is even after you raise that money, how you spend it can be both effective as a candidate and ineffective as a candidate. And so it's a very interesting dichotomy. When you look at these campaigns, once they get the money, are they spending it effectively? And I think you have to be cognizant of that in any business decision or political decision as well.
Of course, more money will be spent in the race to the White House. Thank you so much, Mr. Rick Dunham, for insight on this. And we'd like to thank Ms. Laura Schwartz joining us from Chicago. Appreciate her insights.